Hi there, my name is Les Ross from HighlanderSchoolOfGolf.com. During this video presentation, I want to cover the principle of leverage and show you how you can apply that principle to your golf swing in order to increase clubhead swing speed. To help me with that, I've got this, demonstrate that principle, I've got this simple little propeller. Now you'll notice that I'm making very small movements of my fingers on the smaller diameter, and that is resulting in a large movement out at the tip of the propeller. And that simply is the principle behind leverage. Small movements on the smaller diameter are generating large movements at the tip of the propeller. Now, if we were to look at the speeds difference between a point that's rotating on the smaller diameter and a point that's rotating on the tip of the propeller, it would be a function of their radius of rotation. So the tip at the end of the propeller is rotating at a radius of, in this case, 10 inches, and the point that's rotating on the shaft is rotating around the center line at a radius of a quarter of an inch. So the ratio between those two different radii is 10 divided by a quarter of an inch, which is 40 to 1. So that's quite significant. So what that means then is that whatever motion I'm generating here in the smaller diameter, that's been amplified by 40 times at the tip of the propeller. And that really is the key principle behind leverage. Now, how do we apply this to the golf swing? Well, a smaller diameter here represents the rotation of your hips. The point at the end of the propeller represents the motion of your club head. So if we were able to increase the rotation of, the speed of rotation of our hips, we would see an increase in club head swing speed by the ratio of whatever the differences are in the radius of rotation. So let's look at our hips first of all. Our hips are rotating about the center line of approximately 6 inches. Let's assume that the radius, the swing radius to the club head is 60 inches. So the ratio between those two radii is 60 compared to 6 inches, or 10 to 1. So what that means in theory is that if we were to increase our hip turn speed, we would see a corresponding increase in club head swing speed increase by 10 times, which is significant. And that's why this principle is so important. Now, in theory, that's what will happen. In practice, that doesn't always happen. And the reason for this is that certain conditions have to apply in order to make this thing work. The first condition is that when you reach the top of your backswing, you have to initiate the downswing by a rotation of your hips ahead of any other movement of your club head or trunk. The second condition is that your hips actually have to rotate. Too often I see high handicap golfers with very little rotation of the hips on their downswing. They simply just do a forward press towards the target. So that's the second condition. And the reason why those two conditions are important is that in order for leverage to work, you have to have a connection between your shoulders and hips. And the way that that connection is made is that when you get to the top of your backswing, you're generating torque in your midsection. And that torque is what connects your hips to your shoulders. The reason why you have to initiate the downswing with a hip rotation is that as you rotate your hips ahead of your shoulder turn, you're maintaining that torque. And by maintaining that torque in your midsection, you're keeping the connection between your hip rotation and your shoulder rotation. Same principle applies for the other condition I was talking about, is that you have to rotate your hips. If your hips are simply just sliding forward, as your shoulders are releasing through impact, the torque that you have in your midsection starts to disappear. And with it, that connection between your hips and your shoulders also disappears, and you lose all the advantage of leverage. So the key thing is that when you get to the top of your backswing, initiate the downswing with a hip rotation that maintains the torque, and make sure that you're rotating those hips through the downswing, and then you'll start to see the benefits of leverage with increasing your swing speed. So have a go at this. Go out to the range and focus on nothing more than trying to, first of all, rotate your hips on the downswing, but also rotate your hips as fast as possible. And I guarantee you, if you get this right, you're going to see a corresponding increase in distance. If it's not working for you, then several things could be happening. One is that you may not be rotating your hips, so make sure you rotate those hips. The second thing that could be happening is your shoulders could be releasing ahead of your hips at the start of the turn. So delay the shoulder release, make sure that the downswing is initiated with a hip turn, and you'll start to see improvement. So best of luck with that. Give it a go and see how it works for you. And I guarantee you, if you get it right, you're going to see increase in distance. For those of you who have not yet signed up for the newsletter and you'd like to receive other golf tips such as this in the future, I encourage you to go to my website at HighlanderSchoolOfGolf.com. Click on the newsletter registration. You can sign up and you'll get free tips like this in the future. If you've enjoyed this presentation, I encourage you to share that with your friends. So at the bottom of the video, you'll see the like button. Click on that and you can share that with your friends on Facebook. So best of luck with this tip, and I look forward to working with you again in the future. Bye.